All right, so I am Kristin and I'll be presenting today on the whole body imaging facility, which integrates Glasgow's advanced technologies for imaging that are spread across different sites, but all linked by their applications for non-invasive evaluation of the structure, function, and underlying mechanisms of biological systems and disease processes. And the bridging themes across available whole body imaging technologies are that they enable imaging across scales, so macro, meso, micro levels of resolution, imaging across time points, importantly, the ability to do longitudinal imaging and monitor disease progression is available using imaging, and also the translational imaging science possibilities moving from preclinical models of disease all the way through clinical patients using the same imaging modality. Starting, excuse me, this overview of the whole body imaging technologies with Scotland's only clinical 7 Tesla MRI scanner, which is located in ICE, the Imaging Centre of Excellence on the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital campus. And I'll point out the acute hospital setting for this scanner was a strategic decision when it was installed about 8 years ago, as this enables pioneering clinical imaging research. There are only seven Tesla scanners across the whole UK. There's around 100 worldwide, but at most sites, the scanners themselves are located in research facilities which are remote from clinical populations. What's unique in Glasgow is that we have our 7 Tesla scanner right on the hospital campus. So it's possible to image patient groups, including those who may be acutely unwell. And what 7 Tesla MRI or ultra-high field MRI in general has to offer is it produces images at a higher resolution than has been previously achievable. So compared here on the left and right, you can see 2 images using the same sequence parameters, but acquired on a clinically standard 3 Tesla scanner on the left and our new 7 Tesla scanner on the right. And you can appreciate the much higher level of detail that is achievable. And this is what our 7 Tesla scanner looks like. It's a Siemens Terra system. And in case you're wondering what advantages come with ultra-high field MRI, besides that side-by-side comparison I just presented, basically a large amount of benefit comes from superior signal-to-noise ratio as you move across higher and higher magnetic field strengths. And from that, with 7T MRI, you get sub-millimeter anatomical resolution. An example image here of brain vasculature, and you can appreciate very tiny capillaries that simply couldn't be imaged at lower field strengths. They wouldn't be visible. So what we're getting with 7T is an unprecedented level of detail for non-invasive visualization of anatomy. You also get increased contrast effects for functional imaging and increased sensitivity to metabolite profiles when you use the scanner for magnetic resonance spectroscopy. An important point about 7 Tesla MRI is that imaging different body parts requires specialized radiofrequency coils surrounding just that body part. So in any MRI scanner, as I have in the diagram showing you here, there are 3 major components. Firstly, the static magnetic field itself. At ICE, we have a static magnetic field of 7 Tesla. There are the gradient coils within the scanner, which are used for spatial localization of the image that is being acquired. And then there are the radio frequency coils themselves, which are used to transmit and receive signal from which the image is produced. And with 7 Tesla being a relatively recent technology, the initial focus has been on scanning the head and the brain. And so when you purchase a 7 Tesla scanner, what you get is an RF coil for the head. And there's an example of one there in the image. So most of the work that's been done so far at 7 Tesla magnetic field strength is about head and brain imaging. Although, as I'll refer to a bit later, Glasgow is leading the way in starting to image other body parts. This is just to provide some background so you understand most of the examples that I will be showing are of imaging the head and the brain. So now I'll walk through some examples of what 7 Tesla MRI has to offer, these examples being of course, some brain images for you to appreciate. So as I mentioned, very high resolution anatomical imaging. The examples here are from neurovascular sequences. So these are non-invasive images of the arteries and the veins in the brain. There's no contrast agent delivered for achieving these images. These are simply what can be obtained with a 7 Tesla MRI scanner because of the high signal to noise ratio and just the inherent signal produced by blood flowing through the vasculature in the brain. So an example here of magnetic resonance angiography on the left and susceptibility weighted images on the right. Make sure I can still advance. There we go. Next, high resolution functional imaging that enables the separation of signal from specific layers of cerebral cortex for the first time. So an example here of work that was done by Professor Lars Muckli in our School of Psychology and Neuroscience is looking at contextual information from partially occluded scenes and finding that it is fed back specifically to superficial layers of the primary visual cortex of the brain, actually being able to resolve within layers of the cerebral cortex, which is very exciting for neuroscience and then clinical neuroscience applications to follow. After that, we've got highly sensitive MR spectroscopy at 7 Tesla. And this is a technique for measuring the metabolic status of brain tissue. These spectral measurements can be focused within a single voxel, or they can be parametrically mapped over a whole brain slice, as you can see here in the example on the left. Right. So all of these advantages have powerful applications in clinical imaging research. Here's an example that shows the enhanced detail in 70 images of a brain tumor patient. You can compare the 3 Tesla images on the top to the 7 Tesla images on the bottom. And also MRS data from another patient, which, oops, sorry, I advanced too far there. As I mentioned, is giving information on metabolism. In this case, the metabolism from within the brain tumor as compared to healthy brain tissue, which can be diagnostically informative. Right. So the examples that I've shown only demonstrate 7 Tesla brain imaging. However, a particular strength in Glasgow is the development of novel RF coils for a wider range of imaging applications. So although what's commercially available thus far has been coils for imaging the head and the brain, here in Glasgow, locally developed coils include one that is for neurovascular imaging specifically, so you can do simultaneous head and neck imaging. Some really lovely images just there on the left acquired with this locally developed coil. Particularly interesting for stroke applications because you can image the carotid bifurcation and track the flow of blood up into the entire brain. There's also been an abdominal coil developed. So this is the first for imaging the body below the neck, I should say. So this has been optimized for prostate imaging in the first instance. However, further prototype development is focusing on extending the field of view for imaging other abdominal anatomy. So that could include pancreas, liver, kidneys, other parts of pelvic anatomy as well. And in neuroscience applications, there has been the development of an EEG compatible head coil. So this is a head coil which can be used with an EEG cap inside for recording the electrical activity of the brain at the same time as acquiring functional MRI at a high resolution, which is really cutting edge and very exciting. Right, so moving on to another site within the whole body imaging facility, there are preclinical MRI facilities. These are located at GEMRIC, the Glasgow Experimental MRI Center on the Garscube campus. And we talk about 7 Tesla MRI as being a cutting edge technology for human imaging, but in small bore scanners, it's been available for animal imaging for much longer. So GEMRIC, in fact, is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. And the facilities there include 2 7 Tesla small animal scanners. You can see the details there of the types of imaging that each of these systems are used for. And importantly, there is an upgrade on its way as I speak. A new piece of equipment has been ordered. It's called a cryoprobe, which is the latest in MRI receiver technology. And the way that it works actually has the equivalent to increasing the MRI field strength to 15 Tesla. And some example images of a rodent brain are shown there, acquired with the cryoprobe technology. And you can appreciate we're looking at exquisite levels of detail in some diffusion imaging, tracing white matter pathways, and the angiography imaging there as well. And over the 20 years that GEMRIC has been operating, there's been a long track record of collaborative research covering a wide range of MVLS disciplines. So we can see here, certainly in the neurosciences, examples of projects that have used anatomical imaging, functional imaging, spectroscopy, also arterial spin labeling and diffusion tensor imaging, as well as glymphatic imaging, all being carried out by local research groups. In cancer sciences, MRI is a technique that's been used for tracking growth patterns of tumors. Certainly the translational aspects for comparing with the clinical phenotype, so comparing animal models with human patients, and through that developing novel imaging biomarkers and being able to histopathologically validate those biomarkers. These are all examples from cancer sciences. In cardiovascular sciences, more examples. These are images that have been acquired at GEMRIC, looking at cardiac function in rat models, looking at kidneys in animal models, even being able to image chick embryo in ovo, as you can see there on the bottom. And a particularly innovative project has been carried out with one of the most widely used animal models in life sciences research, the zebrafish. So this was a project to develop MRI of living, active zebrafish. It's being held in place with a little coil that was developed, oxygenated water flowing over it. And with this methodological development, the team was able to perform high-resolution imaging of brain anatomy, as you can see there on the left, and even image the beating heart of the zebrafish in vivo. So moving swiftly along, finally, the last technology to tell you about is a brand new one called Total Body PET. And this is in Glasgow, I should say, this is the, sorry, I've jumped ahead. This is the result of a funding call from MRC that was successful in a collaborative grant application submitted by the universities of Glasgow and Edinburgh. And so us here in Scotland have one of two scanners that have been funded. The other is down in London. And these are connected through NPIP, which is the National PET Imaging Platform. And what Total Body PET enables is simultaneous imaging of multiple disease processes across the entire body. So if you aren't familiar with PET, the standard type of PET scanning that's performed only captures a few organs with a limited field of view. It has a limited dynamic range. You can't achieve higher order data. You essentially slide into a scanner and have one part of the body imaged. What Total Body PET enables, by contrast, is, as the name suggests, imaging the total body at once. And what this also allows is obtaining multi-organ, long dynamics, multi-parametric flux, and really starting to understand key network signatures that previously just haven't been available because the technology hadn't reached that point. So PET technology in general, it enables imaging of molecular processes in vivo. And it starts with the production of a radionuclide, such as fluorine-18 in a cyclotron. And then the synthesis of a radio-labeled molecule follows, which is going to be used as the PET tracer. That tracer is injected into the bloodstream, and it accumulates in body areas where there are high levels of the molecular process of interest. For example, that could be glucose metabolism in tumor cells. The radioactive signal itself is created as the tracer decays. The tracer isotope decays to a stable state. And that emits a positron that soon collides with an electron that produces two high energy photons that travel in opposite directions. So a little bit of physics there just to explain that in the PET scanner, the signal origin is calculated from pairs of photons that arrive simultaneously at detectors 180 degrees apart. And reconstructing the data creates a PET image that maps the tracer uptake within the scanner's field of view. So what you can see here on the bottom is a conventional PET image that shows a high area of metabolic activity, that bright spot, but it's just within the area of the body that fits within the PET scanner bore. And what total body PET enables for the first time is dynamic mapping of tracer uptake across the whole body simultaneously. And you can see an image of this on the right. So now with the new Total Body Scotland, Total Body PET Scotland facility, Glasgow has a complete pipeline for next generation translational clinical PET science. So starting with the translational chemistry development, which Glasgow has a long tradition of leading, now moving through the preclinical PET facilities that are available, and by the very nature of small animals fitting within a small bore PET scanner, this always has been total body PET. Now we have the clinical equivalent of the human total body PET scanner here in Scotland, and that can follow all the way through for clinical trials. So that was a whirlwind tour. As you could see, there are many different imaging modalities available, and I'd like to finish by just highlighting the teams that work within each of the three facilities within whole body imaging. The clinical clinical 7 Tesla MRI team at the ICE building, the preclinical imaging team at Gemric, and then the team at the Total Body PET Scotland facility. Our whole body imaging facility has a steering group chaired by Professor David Lewis. His expertise is in PET imaging, and I myself work primarily in the ICE facility for 7 Tesla MRI. My contact details are there, and we together are very happy to answer any questions about access to the imaging facilities in Glasgow.